Namaste. Today we're going to work on Ustrasana, Camel's pose, and which can be very challenging and yet very freeing. So a couple of things to be aware of is that if you have tender knees, kneeling on a mat can be uncomfortable, but so we've placed a blanket under the knees. We have options with the feet. The feet can either be flat on the floor or you can curl the toes under and lift the heels up. And depending on where the flexibility is in your spine is how elevated you want your feet. And it's a good place to start out with the heels elevated. And then as the body warms up and the back warms up, you can lower the feet to the ground. We've got a couple of blocks close by, and we could maybe actually bring those blocks a little bit closer towards the knees, so about mid-shin, depending on, again, the flexibility of the spine. Another thing to be aware of is the alignment, as she's demonstrating, of the hips over the knees. Another thing that happens with that is leaning backwards, tilting backwards, there you go, and then taking the hands to the heels. So would you do that again? So as you do that, that really kind of stresses the front of the quads, and then the quads will give out easier or quickly. So we come up to make sure that the knees are under the hips, and so we'll begin. We'll begin this part with taking your hands onto the side ribs. We're going to start there for just a moment. And we'll take a deep breath. And as you take a few deep inhalations and exhalations, begin to lift those rib cage up and away from the pelvis, initiating an elongation of the spine. Because bending backwards, people have a tendency to crunch in the lumbar curve area. So we want to get a nice long spine, hips underneath the knees, and even here begin to tuck the tailbone slightly. Good. And zipper up the navel center from the pubis to the navel as you continue to lift the rib cage. That in itself, if you practice this, you would be doing a great Ustrasana, figuring out how the chest lifts. Now, let's take a moment to and begin to pour the rib cage back, lifting it up, pouring it back, and then slide your fingers underneath the armpit chest. So your thumb and your index finger slips right into that armpit chest, and lifting that breastbone and the front of the armpit chest up, and again continuing to lifting the chest and beginning to drop back. Keeping the chin drawn in towards the chest, your gaze can be through the tip of the nose, and as if you were watching the breastbone rise up as you continue to move back. Take a few breaths. Again, check in with that tailbone dropping, navel center zippering, and then as the chest starts to drop back, go ahead and take your hands onto each side of the hips by the sacrum. Palms facing onto the sacrum to support the sacrum, and then feel that lift of the rib cage up into the armpit chest and continue to pour the chest back, lifting, zippering. Good. Let the chest rise as the head drops back in line with the shoulders, but you're watching the front breastbone. Yes, to elongate the back of the neck. Beautiful. Now, if this feels, and she's in a pretty good spot, if this feels comfortable, you can take your hands onto the blocks. And so you can see how her arms just dropped right under her shoulders, and the hands are pretty evenly on the blocks. But if you want to continue to go further, again, feeling the rib cage, the tucking from the pelvis, the front of the thighs moving back slightly. It's carrying the spine back. And then as the shoulders make their way back towards the heels, then again, you just find the heels with your hands. Not a lot of strain. It's the torso that opened up to get the arms there. And once you've got your feet, you can let the head gently drop back, keeping that lift of the breastbone. Good. Finding, yep, the sacrum moving forward, the front of the thighs moving back, the navel drawing in and up. We're still creating the pose with the breath. And if you need a little more challenge, you can take the tops of the feet to the ground. Keep softening, keep finding, and then when you're ready to come up, pull the navel center in and bring the chest all the way up. Beautiful. And a good calming pose after this would be long arm pose of the child or a downward facing dog, but be very gentle as you move into the pose. Good. Elongating the spine, feeling the breath, even letting your chest slightly feel that back bending posture. Good. And then as you're ready, you can walk your hands back to your feet for Uttanasana. And after a couple of breaths and you feel ready, come all the way up to standing. Excellent. Namaste.